So this is me again, Sarah, and I'm with one of my very best friends, Kelly, who's going to be telling me a story that I actually don't think I know. So I'm kind of excited to hear where she's at with everything because I have no clue what she was going to talk about. So this is really cool. So Kelly, why don't you first introduce yourself, kind of tell them like who you are.
Okay. Well, my name's Kelly, and Sarah is, as she said, one of my very best friends. We've known each other for 7, 8, 9 years now, at least. So.
And you're my wife's like bestie friend.
It's been it's been a long time. So that's why I decided to talk about this story, because it's, something I don't talk about very often, but I'm in my early 40s. My husband will lie or tell me I'm lying because I'm really 44, so I'm closer to mid, but I prefer that I'm not in my mid 40s until after 45, so I have another year.
I mean, that makes sense, I guess.
I have 5 kids. They range from 24 to 10. I have a new 3-month-old granddaughter.
Who is
adorable. Coco. And I have elderly parents who I think it's harder to take care of them than take care of toddlers. So I teach full-time online, which is the bane of my existence right now.
Yeah, I haven't heard many teachers say they actually enjoy life.
Nope, it's literally the worst thing. And if I wasn't so far into the tenure track, I would probably look for another job. But
fair enough.
I'm going to trust that, God's going to take care of me here so I can love my job again next year.
I mean, we can hope, right? So I know a little bit of the story very little of what you're going to tell. I know it revolves around your oldest son.
Yes.
But why don't you tell us a little bit of where you're starting with the story?
Okay. So I was 19 I was 18 when I met my first serious boyfriend, and I was my first year of college, and he was a nice guy, and we were inseparable and spent a lot of time together, and, he was my very first, experience. And things were fine. And, of course, when you're older, an older teenager or an early adult, you think about your future together and all that stuff.
All the time,
and, we spent, a substantial amount of time together. And I ended up finding out that I was pregnant a year later. So I was 19.
Okay.
I remember I took the pregnancy test at Baker Square in Taylor, where I worked, in the bathroom. Okay. With another friend of mine, and actually it's like a movie, I guess, because both of our tests were positive.
Oh, Hallmark special.
She had been a friend of mine since 6th grade, and we had graduated together.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, we weren't like super close friends, but here we are.
Okay.
Both pregnant. I found out on Thanksgiving. I found out right around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
That I was pregnant, and I did not tell anyone for a while, because I knew that if I told my parents, in my mind, I would disappoint them, and so I just didn't tell them.
Okay.
So I told them finally. Well, I told him, and of course he decided we should get married, and this was just the natural progression of our relationship. And I'm not sure if it was hormones or my conscience telling me that wasn't the right plan. And he was not a bad person at all.
Okay.
Not at all. I mean, so I think that's where the guilt part comes from, because I just decided that I wanted more out of my life than I would get if I stayed with him, because I just don't, I guess at that point, like, I didn't see him as like a go-getter or somebody I was going to spend my life with, or someone who, not like that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I had a vision for where I wanted to go. I was in college already. I was a junior.
Okay.
Like, I started college right out of high school, and I was 16 when I graduated. Okay. So I was 17 my freshman year, 18 my sophomore year. So here I am, like the first semester of my junior year of college. Oh my God. And he wasn't in college. He was working at a car dealership, and whatever. Like, it isn't about like his station in life at that point. But I just knew that, so whatever. I told him that I thought I needed some space.
Okay.
And I didn't break up with him. But I remember Christmas Eve that year, he wanted to come over and go to church with us. And he had been to church with us before. And, my grandmother had passed away at that point, but my grandpa was still around. And so was an aunt that I was really close to. And so he was around our family a lot.
Okay.
But I remember telling him I didn't feel good and that I didn't want him to come because I just was really tired. And he knew, so he left me alone. But I remember not going to church that Christmas Eve and sitting at home by myself and just like trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Not I was keeping the baby, but just what I wanted to do with the relationship part of it. And so I was very standoffish for a long time. And then fast forward to New Year's Eve, we spent it with my best friend at the time. She had just had her baby. That's Audrey.
Oh, okay.
So we joke that I got pregnant the day that she gave birth to him.
Oh.
Because they're like almost exactly 9 months apart. And a short little segue, she just told me she's going to be a grandmother. And Brinson's baby is due 9 months after Kalari was born.
Oh, that's
so
weird.
Now our granddaughters or whatever will be 9 months apart as well. But anyway,
fun.
So I remember spending New Year's Eve with him, and I would feel like sick when he touched me, like just like an arm on the shoulder or whatever. So I don't know if it was hormones and I didn't know how to read them.
Okay.
But I broke up with him.
Okay.
And he spent a lot of time trying to convince me to stay with him. And I still hadn't told my parents at this point.
Okay.
So I think I was about 4.5 months pregnant before I told my parents.
Wow.
Because I was terrified.
That makes sense.
So I had broken up with him, but he still was, trying to call me or come see me or whatever. And when he would come over and I wouldn't let him in, my parents would like, what is going on? He just won't leave me alone. I don't know. I don't want to talk to him. So my dad would make him leave, and he never said anything to my dad about it. Like, he never outed me.
Okay.
And so I wrote letters to my parents and stuck them in the mailbox and went to work a double.
Okay.
Because I figured that was the easiest way to tell them what was happening and not be there.
Fair enough.
So,
you couldn't text them.
I couldn't text them then because that was 25 years ago. So I remember being at work, and I remember I was a server.
Okay.
And I remember looking up at the front door and seeing my parents waiting to be sat. And I was like, holy shit, we're going to do this here. So they sat him in my section, and everybody at work knew, but just not my parents.
Oh. Okay.
So I was like, because there's a couple older ladies that work there. And, like when you're a young girl and you've got these, like, role models who are unrelated to you, they're the realist.
Right.
And so I would hear advice, you need to tell your parents, you just need to tell them, like, rip the Band-Aid off. They're going to love you anyway. And, but in my mind, I guess, like, what if they don't?
Sure. That makes sense.
I was raised in a church. I was raised not to have sex before I got married, and oh my God. And when I say, like, I was everybody's golden child, like, everybody's. I was the only girl.
Okay.
I was, I had worked from the time I was 15 years old. I'd always had a job. I had good grades. Like, there's no way that I would get pregnant. Like, it's not possible. I think that, but
it is possible.
But that's what I'm saying.
Right,
I think that, like,
sense.
maybe they thought there was a correlation between my good grades and, like, I don't ovulate yet or something. Right. I don't know. I don't know. So I walked out, and my dad stood up, and he hugged me, and he said, we love you, and we're here to get you through this.
That's awesome.
It is. And
That's
my mom
awesome.
was, like, over the moon about a baby, even though she was, like, disappointed that it had happened right then. And that's because she had a couple of friends who'd had daughters that had had children, and even though they were younger, she was still, like, in her back of her mind, I guess she will say this, I just thought, oh, it'd be so nice to have a baby around. And here we are. So I mean, they never scolded, they never disparaged.
That's awesome.
And then when I told them about Chris, the next time he came over, my dad answered the door, and he said, I understand this is hard for you, but if she's asking you to leave her alone, you need to leave her alone.
Wow.
And a couple of times, one time in particular, I remember I went out to leave and get in my car, and he was sitting in the backseat of my car. It was terrifying because it was like at midnight.
Oh my gosh.
But it wasn't a stalky thing. Like, it never was.
He just wanted to
He just wanted to talk and
Yeah.
be part of it. And so he called my friends. He was calling my friends looking for me.
Okay.
And I had asked them all, just don't talk to him. And so it got to the point where it was being like a stressor on my body. And so I did call his mom and I talked to her about it. And the strange thing to me is his father, like the man his mom was married to, was not his biological father, but had raised him from a baby.
Got it. Okay.
So I think from that perspective, I felt like on his side, it was like history repeating itself kind of thing. And she said, okay, he won't bother you again. And he didn't.
Oh, wow.
He never called when I was due.
Okay.
Nothing. And so there's always been this little bit of guilt, I guess, over what I took away from him, even though I thought it was, and I still think it was the right thing.
Sure.
You know, but now that I'm a parent and I see the way Jeff is with all of our kids and I see the way Dylan is with his kids, like it kind of has resurfaced, I guess, a little bit because of Coco.
Okay. Who is Dylan's
daughter. So my granddaughter. And so now I see it through a different lens.
Okay.
And not that this is about Dylan's story, but there was so much turmoil when she first got pregnant between the two of them. And I like overcompensated for him, even though they were broken up at the time, talking to her to try and keep the fence there, because I just thought, oh my God, this is like karma coming back to bite me, that I'm not going to get to be around my granddaughter and my son's not going to get to be around his daughter because I did that.
Right.
Like I just felt like it was I don't know. I mean,
that makes sense.
That worked out okay, but you know, they say everything comes full circle, and I thought, oh, this is my comeuppance for doing that, right?
Right.
So, I don't know. Do you have questions? Before?
Yeah, I do have a question. So, I know, well, obviously I know your husband, Jeff, because, well, one, he's one of our good friends, and two, like, we're lesbians and we don't own tools, so whenever we have like something fall off the wall, we're like, oh, we need to call Jeff.
It's nice that you can call him to fix things because it doesn't happen at my house.
Yeah, it works out really well for us. But no, so talk a little bit about like, so you met Jeff. Talk about his relationship with Dylan.
Okay, so I worked at Baker Square, where I took my pregnancy test, and when I was about 5 months pregnant, Jeff walked in the door at Baker Square to be our new manager. And I looked at him and I instantly, like, there was something there. And I was just some dumb 19-year-old girl.
I mean, he had pretty cool stick-up hair.
He did. He was so cute. And I didn't look pregnant yet.
Okay.
So I remember saying to one of the hostesses when he walked in the door, I said, I'm going to marry him. And I'm not kidding. Like, I said that the minute he walked in the door.
That's crazy. Okay.
The minute. And like I said, I was just some dumb 19-year-old. He was 25. And like, he was friendly to all of us. He was super flirty. All of the girls were like enamored of him. And I remember feeling like I wanted to get to know him really well before I started showing. Because I thought
you didn't have that long to.
No, it was like time was of the essence. So it was around Easter time, because Easter I think was early that year, and Baker Square is known for their pies. So we would have hundreds of thousands of pie orders, and we would have to stay like overnight from like Good Friday or Maundy Thursday even all the way to like Easter Eve and box these pies. So I volunteered for every extra opportunity to stay and hang out with him. So then I remember, this is so embarrassing. So I wasn't showing yet, but there was this black cook named Tommy, and Tommy kept it real. And he said to Jeff one day while he was cooking on the line, because they were in the weeds or something, he said, you know, she's looking for a daddy for that baby. And it was totally a joke, but I was mortified because I was like, oh my God, that's not, I mean, he was, whatever. I was so upset. Not really, but it was embarrassing, right?
Sure.
So I feel like my face is so red right now.
It's a little red.
So it was like a joke, but he and I just got to be really good friends, and there was nothing romantic at all. He would come over and hang out. He met my parents when I was pregnant, and but we weren't like dating or anything. We just were really good friends. And then I don't know, he's from K-Pac, which is like an hour and a half from here. So it's just him down here. He's got no family. So, and he lived in Westland. He had just broken up with a girlfriend, and he was in the process of looking for an apartment down here. So he was looking around like in Dearborn or something.
Okay.
And then I think when I knew that we might end up together is the day that I went into labor. I called him to tell him. And he called the hospital to check on me a couple of times in my room while I was in labor. And he actually called like when I pushed him out, and he heard him cry.
Oh my gosh.
He was talking to my mom, and he could hear the baby cry. So that was that was just awesome.
That's really cool.
And that was his birthday. The day before was his birthday. Because his birthday is August 14th, and Dylan was born on August 15th. So the next day, Jeff had off. Now, he's now 25 at that point. He's a 25-year-old guy. He's off. And this girl that he's friends with had a baby, and the day that he's off, he came to the hospital and stayed the entire day.
Okay.
He was the first person to feed Dylan. I have pictures of him giving him a bottle in the hospital room.
Oh my gosh.
And my mom didn't stay at the hospital most of the day because Jeff was there, and she kept calling me and going, "Is he gone yet?" And I was like, "No." He stayed all day, until 9:00 at night. A couple of my cousins came who, like, you know how cousins are, you don't like see them all the time.
Right.
And so my cousins were calling my mom after they would leave the hospital and go, "Is that the father?" Because like, who is this guy?
Yeah, okay.
So he stayed all day. And I think that's when, I started to think that maybe, that was something that was going to blossom or whatever. But it was, I don't know. He still can't explain it. Like if you talk to him about it, he'll say, "I don't know. Something just told me to go sit at the hospital."
So Dylan never knew a second of life really without Jeff in it.
No.
Correct?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nope. And so it started out as just continuing the friendship. He is his he's his godfather on the church paperwork.
Okay.
Because, I decided that I thought I wanted somebody, strong in his life.
Sure.
And, consistent. And I knew that Jeff was a good person. So
okay.
Jeff is his godfather.
Interesting.
Yep. And so we just started being closer friends. He was there for everything. Like, he would come over, he would bowl on a couple of leagues.
Okay.
And he would bowl and then probably had too much drink. And then he would drive over to my house to see the baby. So he was over, I would say 3 or 4 nights a week.
Wow. Okay.
And when I went back to work, my parents would help me with the baby and watch him, but it would be like an overlap. So I would have to bring him to work with me until my parents could get him, and Jeff would let him go. He would take the car seat back in the office and wait for my parents to get there, or he would watch him for me. Like it just was. And then I started leaving the baby at home to go hang out with Jeff. My mom actually got me a fake ID so I could go to the bar with him because, well, at that point, I think she was like trying to push us along,
sure.
And then he lost his job and ended up, my dad built a bedroom in the basement for Jeff to live in. Okay. So because it's like this gypsy matchmaker story, because my mom didn't want me to not have him if I wanted him around.
Okay.
And so the option after he lost his job was to move back to K-Pac because he was unemployed, or stay here. So my mom was like, "Well, let's just build a bedroom and he can move in." So there it is.
Okay.
Because for a long time, it's like a running joke in our family that like Jeff would just park down the street and my dad would just never notice that he was there.
Okay.
So we were like a couple without being a couple, because we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. That was never like a thing Dylan's first year.
Okay.
And then, but I think it was. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like he was there for you.
Well, we would he dated other girls, and it drove me insane, but we weren't together, so I couldn't do anything about it.
Got it.
But I would get mad at him, and we would get in an argument, and he would, peel out of the driveway, and "I'm never coming back," and he would hug Dylan like it was the last time he was going to see him. And Dylan's a baby, so of course, he doesn't remember any of that, but 2 hours later, he would call me and go, "Do you want to go to dinner?"
Okay.
So it never lasted very long, the breakup.
Yeah. Fair enough. So talk a little bit about, so he was involved, I didn't realize that. So he was involved from the first second, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, so Dylan grows up, he's a teen, Dylan and Jeff.
Yeah.
At that
so
point.
there was a lot of discussion between Jeff and I about when to tell Dylan that Jeff wasn't his biological father. He is officially his like adoptive father since he was 5.
Okay.
We had to wait until we had been married a year or something, and then I had to send registered letters to Chris, who was his biological father. He never answered any of them. I did talk to him on the phone once, and his only concern was, would that alleviate him from me being able to come back after him for any child support? Which was super random because I had never reached out to him for anything. I raised this boy until Jeff and I were married on my own.
Right.
Nobody helped me.
Right.
I did it all. I mean, my parents didn't help me. I raised him by myself. And he was 2 when we got married, like 2.5.
Okay.
So it wasn't like he was, like, I didn't have a 10-year-old that I raised on my own. But still, I mean, babies are expensive, and I did that on my own.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's always parented him.
Okay.
And he's always, been the same dad to him as he is to our other kids. Lucas is 26 months younger. I guess we'll just say 2 years. That's dumb to say 26 months, but whatever.
You can say 26
but he
months.
was no different. Like, it wasn't, the pregnancy was no different. Like, the excitement was no more for Jeff, I don't think. I don't even feel like it was like that from Jeff's family. Like, they've always cared for Dylan the same as they've cared for, the biological nieces and nephews. And that was never a thing. Like, we never talked about it. And so I guess that was what I was talking about in the beginning. We were, like, just never sure when the right time to tell him was.
Okay.
And, my mom kept telling me, you guys need to tell him sooner rather than later. But, like, how do you even bridge that subject? Right. How do you explain it? Because I think to a child, you can't explain the biology of it because you haven't had the sex talk yet.
Right.
And in my mind, and I'm sure in Jeff's mind too, like, we're talking about biology. We're not talking about, any kind of emotion or love. But then that would always make me feel guilty because I don't ever want Dylan to think that he wasn't conceived out of love. It wasn't a one-night stand or like some horrible, like, whatever. It was a relationship that, was strong.
Right, that you really cared about, yeah.
So I think that's the hard part for me is that I wasn't some spurned girlfriend that got pregnant and the dude was like, I'm out.
Right.
I was like, I'm out.
So
it was me.
That leads into the next part in question. We had talked about this a little bit before the podcast started, but talk to me about where you're still struggling within this story. So what you just said kind of sounds like you still deal with that a little bit.
So I think that Dylan struggles with confidence, with self-confidence.
Okay.
And, I mean, he always did, but, so he found out when he was 16 in a horrible way because I have a cousin who has daughters that are the same age as Dylan.
Okay.
And her parents were going through a divorce at this particular time. And it's a funny thing, not funny, haha, but just interesting to me that you don't think that kids see kids with whole homes and feel jealousy.
Yeah,
but they do.
They do.
They totally do. And so this particular young cousin of mine was struggling with her parents not being together.
Okay.
And Dylan's parents are together and happy and all that stuff. And she told him at school. And I was on my way to pick him up from school because school was over for the day. And he called me and he said, is Dad my dad? And I was like, what? Yes. What? Like, I didn't, I was, like, all of the blood, like, drained from my body. Yeah. And I instantly wanted to throw up.
Right.
And I thought, oh my God, like, what the hell? Right? So he explained what she had told him. And I could tell in his face and in his voice that he wanted me to say she was lying. Like, he wanted me to tell him it was not true. Mm-hmm. So we sat and I tearfully explained, and he didn't say anything. Like, he didn't yell at me. He didn't cry. He just was like numb, I think.
Okay.
And so it ended up being a great, like, the outcome was great. Mm-hmm. I was the one, I think, that was most negatively affected by it because, like, he and Dylan had a great talk, and Jeff told him, you are my son. And it doesn't matter that my blood doesn't run through your veins. He said, your heart and my heart are combined. I've been your father since the first breath. And and then Dylan told Lucas, who is 2 years younger than him. And Lucas was like, so?
Oh, so he didn't even.
No, he was like, what? Who cares? Like, what does that even mean? So that was their, like, they hugged over it and they were like, it doesn't matter and it doesn't make a difference at all. And then we took the older kids, the 2 older boys, out to dinner because I didn't need to explain it to the younger ones yet at that point. Right. I mean, Julia she's 6 years younger than, well, wait, is she 17? And Lucas is 22. So like 5 years and 7 years.
Okay.
So at that point, she was like 9.
Okay.
That's hard to explain to them.
Yeah.
I mean, they all know now. And when they talk about half siblings of their other friends, sometimes they'll say, isn't that what Dylan is? And that rips my heart out every time they hear it. Yeah. Like that, I always change the subject because I don't want to talk about it. Like in my mind, no, that's not the same thing.
Right.
But it is. It is.
I think it depends on how you define it, though, because there's some technical half-siblings who are way closer than some full.
Agreed. You know. But I just don't like even the connotation that it's not all there.
Yeah.
I have my own half-brother. Right. And I don't feel any different toward him than I feel toward my full biological siblings.
I mean, I'm anti-labels for, like, everything, as you know. So.
I know, but
so
it isn't, like, it isn't us that labels it. It's, like, they hear it, their friends talk about it, and I don't know that they ever talk about it in terms of Dylan, but that just like, I don't know, it's just a huge like, so that happened, and so I think the part that resonates with me the most is how it has affected Dylan, and I don't even think he realizes it affected him, and I don't know that I want to bring it up yet, but so right after he found out, he asked me if he could meet his biological father.
Okay.
And I was like, I mean, I know where he lives. He lives just outside of Port Huron.
Okay.
And he's got a wife and he has children. And so I reached out to him on Facebook, and I probably still have the messages saved because they were from back then. And he said that he, of course, thinks about him all the time and he would love to meet him.
Okay.
That he was going to talk to his wife about it, and maybe we could meet at a coffee shop. Okay. You know, somewhere in between or whatever, just us and Dylan.
Okay.
I'm not sure how I felt about that because it freaked me out, but I felt like it shouldn't be either of our spouses because this was about him and not about us. So about a week went by and I didn't hear anything back, and Dylan asked me almost every day. And so he finally responded to me and said that his wife decided that she didn't think it was a good idea, and so he wasn't going to meet him. And I got furious, and I really sent him what I felt in a Facebook message. Okay. But I just thought it was really shitty of his wife to say that, because what if, like, he said, my wife feels we made our choice 16 years ago. Okay, I don't want to get back together with you. I just wanted to let him meet you, like, whatever. And so I think that really bothered Dylan, even though, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Because Dylan said, when I told him, Dylan said, well, fuck him.
Okay.
And I think that was just his defense mechanism.
Yeah.
And not that he's wanted for affection his life through. I mean, Jeff has always been supportive and loving, and, you know, they come to Jeff because he's a cooler head than I am. Right. And, you know, like, when things are really something that they need help with, if it's an emotional thing, they call Jeff because they know I can't handle it.
Okay.
So.
Fair enough.
It's true, though. I mean, you know, I'm always jump to the worst case scenario, and Jeff is so level-headed and even-tempered, and, you know, he doesn't get mad very often, and so I don't know. I just think that had to have affected Dylan, and I think it has something to do with how unsettled he seems all the time.
Okay.
Like, unsettled with a choice for a job or a career or
I can see that.
You know, I just feel like that has a lot to do with it, and so many times I want to bring that up to him and just say, hey, you know, I've been thinking about this, and I really feel like he should go talk to somebody.
Right.
And work through it, because it might not be as big of a deal as I feel like it is.
Sure.
But for somebody to just never feel satisfied, there has to be a reason for that.
Do you think there's do you see an opportunity for that conversation in the future? Or,
yes.
Okay.
I do. I think Coco is my in.
Okay.
Because it's been, like, she has made me think about things that I hadn't thought about in a while.
Okay.
As far as the
like everything resurfacing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's the recurring thing that I deal with a lot.
So something I had prepped you with was that so part of, I'm telling everybody this while they're on the podcast because that's fine. But so part of what we're doing with this is like, I'm going to kind of like think back and listen back to this story. And then in this class, we've been talking about how to re-author some of our stories. So just kind of like, and not change, like you can't change the past, but there's certain things about my past that I put weird blame on myself for, that I'm like if I re-author it and like own it instead of like put blame on myself, you know, like you really can move forward. So I'm going to kind of go through your story and like, I'll send you like a thing after, like, maybe this might, you know,
good.
But so one of the things that helps me is kind of like get into your headspace a little bit. So 4 characters in the story.
Okay.
You, Dylan, Chris, Jeff.
Okay.
I want 3 characteristics for each character.
Okay. Oh, boy.
And I am writing them down.
Okay. Who do you want me to start with?
You.
Okay. I think, God, that's harder than you would think it is, isn't it?
It's incredibly difficult.
I think headstrong.
Okay.
Is one. I think, God, it's like an oxymoron, but like, as headstrong as I would describe that person, I would also describe that person as terrified.
Okay, I think that's fine.
I think loving.
Okay.
And ambitious.
I would agree with those. All right, so let's do Jeff.
Okay. Compassionate.
Okay.
Level-headed.
He is a level-headed person.
He is a level-headed person.
I sometimes envy that. I'm not very level-headed.
I think he's energetic.
Okay.
And thoughtful, not in the way of like, I want to give you something thoughtful, but thoughtful and like pensive.
Okay.
That's a better word. He really thinks. Like, have you ever had a conversation with him and he sits for a second and like stares up into space before he answers you? That used to be so annoying because like when I talk, whatever comes out, right? But he's so pensive, and like I said, it's endearing now because I know he's like really thinking about his answer. But damn, that used to be so annoying. Just spit it out. But anyway, I think that's a good characteristic.
What about Dylan?
Dylan is big-hearted.
Okay.
Dylan is creative. Dylan is emotional. And Dylan is, help me think of the word.
Okay.
Like he will stick by you through thin and thin. Loyal. Yeah, yeah.
Is that what you were thinking? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what about Chris?
Chris was thoughtful in the way of like wanting to take care.
Okay.
Chris was hardworking. He was emotional. And he was like miserly.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Okay.
He had so much money saved. Like, he never spent it.
Okay.
That's a weird thing to say, but I just remember.
Okay.
So Dylan definitely got genes from me on the saving part.
Fair enough. Or maybe from me in some weird way. One of the things that I want to make sure we talked about just before we're done. So looking at like where this story is redemptive, what you said, and you've talked about it a little bit about your family coming together.
Yeah.
But just talk about like a little, how has this been redemptive, at least for your family?
Well, I think that, especially in the world that we are living in now and that we've been living in for a little while, like knowing that you have people that have your back is so important. And so, I mean, even now, sometimes when the kids will, bring up the half sibling thing and we have a conversation about it, like, I just think that Dylan and Jeff have been closer since that conversation the day that he found out.
Okay. Because
I think that was like a bonding moment for them.
I'm sure.
Like, I just remember the embrace lasted forever, and there weren't a lot of words. It just was more just like a reassuring thing. So that, I think the redemptive part of that is that family is so much more than what your biology is. And so,
I feel like that's going to be the title of this podcast episode, because that's like a brilliant statement.
Well, another part of that, though, and I know this is like my story, but there was a moment in time where we were unsure of the paternity of our granddaughter.
Right.
And up until the day she was born, really. Right. I mean, Dylan and I had several talks, and he really struggled with knowing whether that baby was his or not. Like, they were supposed to have a paternity test, and then COVID hit, and they couldn't.
Yeah.
And I was really happy that that Sharia and her mom had decided to go ahead with the paternity test pre-birth, because that was a huge problem for Dylan. Like, he, to a fault, is a loyal, he would never cheat on somebody.
Right.
And so the fact that he was cheated on was a real problem for him before she got pregnant.
Right.
And then when he was faced with the thought that baby that he had wanted for so long, because he's wanted to be a dad since he was in high school. Right. And I kept saying, like, keep it in your pants.
Wait a little bit.
Well, that's like a joke. Like, he beat teen pregnancy and I didn't.
Okay.
So I had that on his birthday cake. Oh. When he turned 20. I said, you beat teenage pregnancy.
That's the best cake ever.
Well, because, I mean, even though it's not like I was going to be on 16 and pregnant.
Oh, sure.
But, the history often repeats itself, and I just didn't want that. Because as much as I would never trade my life or the fact that I had him when I had him, it was hard.
Sure.
It was hard. So, but anyway, we had a lot of tearful conversations, tearful on his part, and me just like not being able to do anything about it.
Right.
What if she's not mine? And I would always say to him, do you love this baby? And he would say, with everything I have, before she was even born.
Right.
I said, then Dylan, you're going to have to make a decision. If you love this baby, then nothing else matters. It doesn't matter because Sharia had nothing to do with the other party.
Right.
It wasn't even a thing. It was like a one-time
right.
whatever. And you can't tell somebody how they're going to feel. And he kept saying, well, what if I look at the baby and I know she's not mine? What if I don't feel the same way once she's in my arms than I do right now? And I said, I can't tell you
right.
what to do, but I can tell you that, just think about you and your dad. And he knows you're not his biological child, but it hasn't changed how he feels about you from the get-go.
Right.
And so I think that kind of like is what caused the resurfacing, but that's also that like I had insight to help my son when he was faced with a situation that would potentially be similar. You know what I mean?
Which is like all you want to do as a mom.
Right.
So that makes sense.
So, I mean, I don't know. And then like, I guess it put myself in Chris's mom's shoes all those years ago.
Sure.
Her situation was exactly the same.
Yeah.
I mean, his biological dad, like he had contact with him, but it was the same thing. Like his stepdad's name was Tom, but Tom was his dad.
Okay.
And he even had Tom's last name because Tom adopted him. So, I mean, Dylan's last name was Carpenter until he was 5. And then it changed to Klug when he adopted him. So all his kindergarten and first grade stuff has Carpenter on all of it. So does his first birth certificate. I have it, but
interesting.
His second birth certificate says Klug and Jeff's name is on it. So anyway.
Well, this has been... I didn't know like half of this. I feel very honored that I
feel like I should write a book or something.
I think you should write a book. Yeah.
Like you think about, I'm sure you have things in your life that you've come through. I don't want to say overcome because I don't feel like I overcame being an unwed mother. I didn't overcome it, but to come through it.
But you come through, yeah.
To come through it and come out on the other side,
I think everybody should write a book. Well, maybe not everybody.
I think there'll be nothing to buy if we all write books.
But I think
just do a big trading party.
Well, thanks for podcasting with me.
You're welcome. This was kind of fun.
And so for everybody listening, I'll be sending Kelly just kind of what I heard and whatever she does with it will be her own business. She can burn it in the fireplace if she wants. But yeah, so thank you, and we'll sign off. Say bye.
Bye.